Hello and welcome to today's Criterion 25R4 release webinar. My name is Steve Tompkins. I'm Principal Solutions Architect with Sage HCM, also known as Criterion HCM. I'm happy you joined us today, and we're looking forward to showing you what we have to offer for our 25.4 release. First thing I want to, of course, mention, you see here our title slide, but I do want to mention the release timeline here, our release plan. So obviously today, the 30th, we're having our webinar on 25.4, and I'll talk about a number of the fantastic new features that are going to be available to you. And then the official release date of it, at least as it's scheduled right now, is February 9th. Is when it will be available to be able to use the software. So with that being said, let's go ahead and share my browser here. All right, I do want to mention that we do have a chat available. We have people who can answer Q&A questions if you have any questions in there. And of course, if we're not able to answer it during today's webinar, then what we'll do is we'll go ahead and follow up with you. So here you can see the agenda of what we're going to try to cover today. I'll go into the detail of each one of these things, but I'm going to start off talking about HR enhancements. We'll talk about payroll, scheduling, talent, self-service, and then I will finish off with mobile. So first things first, here is the user interface redesign. Now, we didn't go and completely revolutionize the UI here, but what we have done is given you as you can see here, a new color scheme and some new fonts are available for you. Now, you do not have to use the new color scheme if you have the system configured for yourself and you have your own logos and colors and everything like that. You're certainly welcome to keep those and continue using them. If you do like the Criterion color scheme and everything, you're certainly welcome to use that. But if you would like to try the Sage one, you can go ahead and make that change under your employers. This is a per employer setting, and I've gone ahead and opened my employer detail here. When you scroll down, you will see the colors here under self-service. And if you would like to use the Sage colors, the new color scheme, you could just simply click reset to default. And all of these will update to the new colors. All right, but this is also where you could change them to your own colors if you're interested in that. And of course, you'll see I have the Sage logo here, but you can, of course, have your own company logo there. All right, so that's the new user interface redesign as far as that's concerned there. I did want to talk about the 9-box grid redesign. Now, we didn't change it completely. What we've done is made it so that you have options on how it looks. So if you're familiar with where the 9-box is, what I'll do is I'll go over here and show it to you. It's under your HR reports, is 9-box grid right here. And what we've done, of course, is to change how it looks a little bit. We have given you some options for the colors and how things look on here. So let's talk about where you can make those changes. What you'll do is it's going to be in your settings. Under succession planning, you'll see 9-box report settings. And here's what it looks like. This is the new default color scheme, and perhaps you like that, and certainly you're welcome to use that. You also have choices here if you would like to try some other color schemes. So you could click here and maybe you like this blue and orange or the grayscale or whatever might be your favorite in here. You certainly can select from one of these as you would see fit. Now, you can also click on any box and relabel the box as well as change the color for the box. Now you'll see here, you could type in the hex code, you could type in the RGB code. You can also just use your mouse to find the right color for yourself there and change the color for that. Now it is per box, so it doesn't change all of them. If you wanted to change all of them, you can obviously use these up here. All right, so very simple to be able to do that. And like I said, I could change the description on here if I like to do that. All right, so once I've made the changes, if I had, of course, I would click Save down here. And then just to show you the report, what we're looking at, in case you're not aware, is on employees. I'll just go ahead and choose Jody here as an example. You can have them show up on that 9-box grid using these fields here on succession planning. This is something that is not new. It's something we introduced previously, but this is how you get that information on there. So if this person is good performance and high potential as an example, you could set that right there. And maybe you go to somebody else and you set their stuff in here. Of course, you could change it on this screen if you need to. So very easy to do this and set that up for you there. And then of course, what you would do is on the report under 9-box grid is where you would change this. All right, so if I hit show grid here, you'll notice here we have each person who is on the grid. Now, I have several hundred employees, but each person who I've actually gone through and set up their performance and potential is showing up on this grid right here. And I can see that right there. Now, I can, of course, go and narrow it down by department or position or something like that if I want to. And you'll notice how the name is showing by default. If I don't want the name, I could have it just show the number of employees. All right, and if I click on an employee, it's going to take me to a pop-up of this screen, and I could change it. So perhaps I rethought what I think of Alberto, and I want to move him to high performance, medium potential. I could do that right there. All right, and then you'll see how that's changed in there. Now, what I can't do is if I don't see somebody here, I would have to go to their employee record and update it. That's how they'll get on here. All right, so that's the changes to our 9-box grid and the redesign of that to make it more customizable, more configurable for yourself. All right, let's talk about a little bit of change to time off plans. So previously, if you needed to change the taken or accrued or something in a prior accrual period, it did not have any impact on the current accrual period here. So let's just take this PTO as an example. You'll notice this person has 120 hours carryover, some little bit of accrued and some used there. If I go back and I look at last year, I can see that there was some carryover from 2025. He carried over 120 hours. Maybe I missed entering in some time for him, and I want to make up for that here. So I might go to time off and go ahead and add a transaction here for last year. So I'll go to PTO as an example, and I'll just go ahead and put that in last year. Maybe he took some time off around the holidays or something, and let's just do right there. And I'll just put 8 hours for this day. And you'll notice we have this pop-up here saying I'm adding time off to the past period, and it will affect carryover for the current period because, of course, he had 120 hours. I'm adding 8. It's going to go ahead and remove those 8 hours from the 120, and now you'd only have 112 to carry over. All right, so here you'll see there's the 112, and there's the carryover of 112. So it updated that here without me having to go manually adjust this. It goes ahead and takes care of that automatically. All right, so that is the time off plan carryover adjustment. Now, some of our clients, some of you have many different work locations, perhaps because you have different job sites, and they are all in the system as work locations because you need it for tax purposes or whatever the situation might be for those different work locations. Now, they may not be ones that you want to have as a home work location where somebody is based out of that location. It just happens to be a job site. It's maybe a temporary situation while you're under construction or something, and you don't want it to make it a home office for somebody or a place that you're going to add to the employee's record. So what you can do is on a work location now, you can mark it as project only. So when I do this here, what that means is that it doesn't change how it looks here or anything, and I can still attach it to a project, but when I go to the employee's record, it's not going to be available for me to select as one of their work locations here because it's just for that project. It's a temporary situation, possibly. I'm not going to have them based out of that certain project. So that's what allows me to do if I would like to have project only work locations, and that is something you can import as well. So you may know that you can import in work locations as well as projects. You can mark them as such as a project only. So that way, when you go to your list here, you don't see all of the different, project locations that are not necessarily where somebody is based, but more for their work only. I would only see those ones that I want to show, like if we have offices in certain locations. All right, so that is a project only work location. Duplicate dependent Social Security number support. So what this allows you to do now, there's a new setting that you can say that maybe the same dependent is covered by two employees. You maybe have a husband and wife, and they're covering their child. They're both, and that child would be on the dependent for both of them. And previously, what we did is we were looking for the social security number. If there was a duplicate, we would flag it and not let you save it in there, which could cause problems because perhaps they're covered under medical for one of the parents and they're covered under dental for the other. For whatever reason that might be, you might want to have them broken out that way. Or they might be in there as beneficiaries for both of them for different plans and you need their social. This will allow you to save that same dependent twice or more times. I guess if you had them as a dependent for a brother or grandparent or something like that. It allows you to do it multiple times. So what you can do now is under the system configuration, you can go into your field configuration and you'll see a new icon up here that is a gear with this setting here to allow dependents with the same social security number. What that means is now I can go to an employee and I have right here husband and wife who are working here. And you'll see if I go to their dependents, the same dependent is going to be listed there for both of them. So here you can see the son or daughter right there. And if you look at the social security number, there's a social security number. So this person is listed as a dependent under Christopher. And then if I go to the other person, Jody, the son or daughter is listed here as well with the same social security number. That makes it so much easier to do this. We would have problems previously with perhaps dependents and beneficiaries where you needed them connected to both. And especially when you're sending an EDI, if you need that social security number, there was an issue. So that's why we resolved that problem. And now a dependent can be attached to multiple employee records if you need to do that. All right, along the same lines as dependents is HMO provider information. It's the ability to track the PCP ID on dependents because many times you need that information to go over to your carriers when they select HMO coverage. So on the dependent, there are fields down here where you can indicate the PCP ID for medical, dental, and vision plans, as well as checkboxes for checking that there are existing medical patients. So you can have the employee go through open enrollment. They can fill this information in here on the dependent screen. When they go select the HMO plan that they're going to be enrolling in, we can then send this information over to the carrier, or at least you could track it over here if you're doing something manually. So of course you'd want to put this for each dependent because sometimes you have different PCP IDs for different dependents. So you want to make sure it's set up correctly for each one. But these new fields are available for you if you would like to use those. Employee group filters in advanced search. So you may be familiar with the advanced search that's available here. When I'm searching for employees, of course, we have these standard fields here where I can look for, somebody with some social security number or employee number or something like that. But here I might want to have an advanced search where I set something up like I look at employees who are older than a certain age or they're in a certain department or some field that doesn't necessarily exist here. And I want to create a search for that. So here you'll see where I could do that. I can say, I want to look at the person's record, but this is the new one here, which is employee group. So you may want to say, I want to look somebody who's a member of this particular employee group and type in the employee group. I think I have one called active employees. You would, of course, need to know the name of your employee group. And then I want anybody who has been, their average days is equal to 5. I'm not sure why I need this information, but whatever your query is going to be. And you can add as many in here as you need to. You might need, a certain group, average days, job title is equal to this, department is equal to that. You can add as many different things in here as you would like. And when you hit apply, it's going to show any records that match up with that. So luckily, I did have a group called active employees. All these people are 5, but you may have noticed that actually some people did disappear. I might have some part-timers or maybe people who are not members of those groups. And if you're curious where the group names are, you may have seen that you could do group name as well as the group code. Those are right here under HR administration. So you'll see those right here. So it's possible the name and the description are different. I don't see any on my example here that are different, but you'll want to take note of these before you build that, because if I were to type active employee, it wouldn't match up. All right, so just make sure you come here to read those things, and especially if you do set up that thing, you're not seeing any results, you may want to just double check that this is correct. Once you see this is correct, check any other criteria to see if there's other people who match that, because it is doing, each one has got to match when you're doing those advanced searches. All right, let's talk about the open enrollment coverage and premium display. And I just realized I haven't started my open enrollment for this person. In fact, let's talk real quickly about something I'm going to talk about later, which is this open enrollment announcement. You'll see right here at the top of the screen, this announcement is showing me that I have open enrollment to complete. Now I can still go over here, go to open enrollment, I can launch that, but this also allows me to launch it right from here. All right, so here I am in the middle of my open enrollment. I have some coverage to select here. Here's my dependents as an example, and I'll just go ahead and select some plans very quickly. You'll see that, and dental. Right, and life insurance, and I'll do I don't know, $150,000. Right, and I do need to have a beneficiary in here, so I'll go ahead and select my spouse. Right, so mine very simple. I just have three, but of course you may have many more steps than that. But what we're talking about here is showing the coverage and premium here on this screen. So you'll see here as an example, there it is showing the coverage. Now, previously this was not here. What you would see is the contribution, but not the coverage. So it just allows it to be easier for the employee to verify everything, especially if this was several steps back. Now, mine happened to be the next, I could go back very quickly, but let's say you had 8 steps and this was step 2. I don't want to necessarily have to jump back all the way to step 2. Not that I can't click on it, but I can see it right here on the screen. All right, so you see how I can see those things now. Of course, some plans don't have coverages, like dental and medical. A lot of times they don't have a coverage, so you may not see something there. But those plans that do, like maybe a long-term disability insurance, short-term disability, et cetera, may have amount of coverage, and you want to show that there. So now we have that available for you to view, or for the employee to view when they're looking at this summary page. Now, last but certainly not least is the early break return warning. So what this allows you to do is in time entry, when people are clocking in and out of the system, they may want to take a break. And you might say that the minimum amount of time for a break is 10 minutes. Let's just say they're taking a break and their manager runs over and says, I need you right away. It's only been 5 minutes. So today, or in the current version, you have the option to say, no, the minimum break length is 10 minutes, and the system will not allow you to clock in early. But you may, again, have situations where you want to allow that. So you can now set up your time sheets to allow a message to show up, letting them know that they should be taking a 10-minute break or however long the break is, but allowing them to clock in anyways. So when I come down here, it is on the break configuration here. So you'll see here, I have this break, I have a 10-minute break. I have it configured that the break is 10 minutes and the minimum return is 10 minutes. So today, if I were to clock in without checking this box here and, try or clock out and try to take a 3-minute break, it will not let me clock in for another 7 minutes. And that doesn't matter if I'm on mobile, if I'm at a clock, if I'm here in the browser. However, if I check this box, I can put a message here to say, all breaks should be 10 minutes. Are you sure? Or something like that. And of course, I could put it in multiple languages. So perhaps I want to put it in French or Spanish or something. I can go ahead and put it in that language, and it will match up the language with whatever the employee has set up on their phone or on the self-service. They'll be able to see that in their preferred language. All right, once I save this, it will allow me to clock in early from a break if I would like to do that, so that I can, come back and help out as necessary. Now, this will not change any rules around, let's say, lunch breaks. So if you have a requirement for a 30-minute lunch break, the manager comes over at 25 minutes and asks that person to come back in early, has that setting enabled so they can, it will still do the lunch penalty, because the law says it must be a 30-minute break, even though the manager call that person back in early. So that what is the new feature there for early break return warnings. All right, so those are the enhancements I've put under HR. Now, some of these other things fall into HR, and we'll certainly get into those, but I'm going to move along to payroll here. What I do want to mention is that if you have ideas for the system and you think something like that break return early is a great idea, you've got something in your mind that you'd like the system to do, you can reach out to us through the help up here and submitting a new idea right in the system. So I could come in here and I can say, I have a great idea about whatever that happens to be. And you'll see a number of people have put ideas out here. Just yesterday, somebody put in here about a report, this workflow, whatever these happen to be, you can read the ideas that are out there. In fact, see this one has a lot of votes, multiple employee actions in one day. Somebody has, a lot of support behind this idea. And we pick up on these, we add these enhancements into the system. So if you have an idea, I recommend you come here, click on new post, put in your idea like this, maybe even include a snapshot. You draw up a little diagram of what you're doing, explain what you're looking for, and we will certainly evaluate these. I'm not going to say that every single idea gets added to the system, but especially when we see a lot of support behind an idea, we take these very seriously and we add them in there. That's where many of these features have come from. All right, back to our programming here. So here you'll see we're going to talk about some things with payroll. So with payroll, you may have some time off plans set where they can cash out or get paid out of their time off upon termination, or like I said, cash out at any time. So that is something that we introduced a little while back. And just to go over that configuration, just so you can see, what you'd want to do is in your time off your time off types here under users, you can indicate, let me just say T here, your time off type goes, you can indicate that a certain reason is used for cash out. Like you'll see this paid time off, I have this vacation cash out. So you can set up some time off type codes. And if you put true in this column or this field, you'll see here this field that's called cash out. That allows the employee who's making that request to request time be paid out. So it's not going to necessarily mean they're taking that time off for the day. They're cashing out some of their balance. So maybe they have 100 hours of vacation and they want to cash out 40 of it because of whatever reason. This might allow them to do that because they can cash that out there. So this needs to be configured here. And then of course that plan that type needs to be in the plan itself. So if you go to your time off plans, and let me find vacation. So it needs to be here in your time off type. Now, if you've already have existing plans and you want to add this, you're going to have to work with support because as you can see, I cannot add codes here. We can help you out with that. You can reach out to support or your partner and we can help get that added in there. What we've now added though is when you're paying out, whether it's a cash out or upon termination, you may want to use a different income code than what is normally used for your vacation. And the reason this is very useful is let's say you have a salaried person, they're getting a certain amount of salary every pay period. When they take vacation, they still get that same amount of salary. And all we might be doing is moving that vacation or PTO into a different income code. But at the end of the day, they're still going to get the same gross amount of pay. When I do this, I can set the income code to not be part of that salary. And so this would be added into or on top of that salary. And where you set that up is on the income code, you say to exclude it from the salary. So this vacation cash out, let's just say the person is $2,000 a week as their salary. The vacation cash out, maybe they're cashing out 40 hours, ends up being $500. They would get $2,500 instead of $2,000. So that's how that would work there without affecting the salary and lowering that salary by $500 and making the total gross $2,000. So this allows you to do that. Of course, you need to set up the income code first. If you're not familiar with that, it's right here under your payroll administration. All right, so here you can see if I go down, I'll show you that vacation cash out as an example. The code, whatever I like to call it, the description, whatever I like to call it, it's going to be cash because I'm going to give the person the money. It's a regular type pay. They're just going to get taxed normally. It's going to be paid hourly because you're going to type in 40 hours, 8 hours, 120 hours, whatever it is. And then I'm going to exclude it from salary. So it's not going to be part of the salary. All right. And I probably don't want to make it overtime eligible or anything like that. So I've unchecked all those. Now, the rest of this, if you have a certain limit per year or something like that, you might have that built in down there. All right. So that is the configuration of time off payout or cash out income separate than the normal time off income code. Calendar year time off accrual method. So what this is for are those accrual plans where the calendar is where the plan ends. It might end on December 31st and roll into the next year on January 1st. However, if there's an accrual that's done weekly or biweekly, it's definitely possible that the week does not end up equaling exactly the year end date. Maybe it ended up being December 28th. Well, those 3 days there at the end of the year, you want to make sure are handled. So you can now set up a plan to have a calendar year end, and it will make up that difference of those 3 days, as an example, that might have been accrued at the end of the year, and so allow that carryover to happen correctly rather than maybe carrying over the wrong amount or the usage of it being in the wrong period. So you can set up those plans that way if you like to have that calendar year end versus using the weeks. This one is kind of a visual, not a one I can show you, but that is something that you can set up in there and allow that to happen. So what you would do is in the accrual period for a time off plan, I've already set up my time off plans, but you'll have an ability here to have the accrual period here, annual, right? And if you want it calendar, you'll see here, I can say the accrual period is calendar. So that's going to use whatever date here as a rollover versus if I do annual, what it does here or fiscal, it's going to be maybe tied to a pay period versus tied to a calendar date. So that is a new feature here. Again, just like with the time off types, if you want to change existing plans to do this, please reach out to us. We'll help you to configure that because we need to take into account the accruals that have happened and make sure all the balances are transferred correctly. So we can work with you if you want to have plans that are not fiscal anymore or anniversary, they're based off of a calendar date. All right. Last, but certainly not least in payroll, is some enhancements to the report security profiles. So if you would like to give people access to payroll reports, and in their security, they don't have access to all employees, the reports will now not show them the employees that they previously may have been able to see in payroll reports. So in other words, let's say I can only see one department of employees. When I run reports, it will only show me the numbers for those people that I have access to see. So it could allow you to say, I'm going to give a manager or I'm going to give an administrator who's not maybe accessing all employees the ability to run one or more of these payroll reports, but only show the employees that they have access to see. All right, so that's is again one of these things. It's difficult to show, but what happens when I run the reports is it will only show the people I have access to. I have access to everybody, so running this report is not going to really show any difference. But if I only had access to 5 employees, I'm only going to see those 5 employees. Okay, so those are the 3 payroll enhancements I'm highlighting here. Let's move into scheduling because we have several scheduling enhancements in here. So let's go over to scheduling. Let me cancel out of here. And here you'll see I have some shifts set up out here. So first off, let's talk about the start date of the week. Now, this is not a new function, and you may have schedules set up that say the start date of the week is Saturday or Monday or some other thing like that. However, what was happening was down here at the bottom, this start date didn't match up with that start date right here. Now, the schedule still would work with the right pay period and everything like that. It's just that if you had a rotation, you had to account for the fact that the start date may be Tuesday and had to build it around this being kind of the third column in versus the first column. So now what happens is this right here will drive what shows up right here. If I were to select Tuesday as an example, when I create a new one, Tuesday is going to be the very first thing that's on there. So just like that. So a little minor thing on here, but makes it easier to do the scheduling. You don't have to do that math in your head or that adjustment in your head when the period down at the bottom didn't match up with the period right here at the top. So that's the start date. Next up, we have the schedule auto-populating the timesheet. Now, you may or may not be using the work periods to populate your timesheets today. What that allows you to do is to set up a repeating schedule on the employee. It's not using the scheduling module. It is using the work periods here to say, I'm going to give everybody 9 to 5, Monday through Friday ends up being 8 hours. Now, this is not flexible in any way. I can't say it's that way this week, and next week it's going to be Sunday through Thursday. And then the week after that, it's going to be something else. You can kind of do that by changing their work period all the time, but that's very intensive as far as the work involved. But this is very useful if you have the same staff, office staff, you just want to populate 8 hours a day, Monday through Friday. It's always going to be that way. You can auto generate those hours on the timesheet. So now we've extended that over into the shifts. So if I set up a schedule for somebody, and I'll show you, I have one created right here, it will take these hours and when I create the timesheet for this week, it can populate these hours into the timesheet. This is very useful if you have a rotation or you just have a different schedule from week to week, which the scheduling module does a great job of. I could have different schedules every single week if I need to for different people. And it'll read this when it creates the timesheets if you have that enabled. And where do you enable that? That's on the timesheet layout. So you would go into your timesheet layout. And we used to have or if you look now, there's a checkbox up here that says auto populate hours. That's going to read the work period. And if you have that enabled today, in 25.4 is just going to say from work period. You won't need to do anything. If you're not auto-populating, it's going to say do not auto-populate. So there's nothing you need to do going forward if you do not want to use the shift assignment. But if you do want to use the shift assignment, you need to do this. All right. Be aware that the shift or the schedule has to be published and existing when the timesheets are created. So if I'm still working on my schedule and somebody goes in and creates a timesheet, it won't auto-populate their hours because the schedule has not been published for them to use. All right, so that is one little caveat there. And if you want to say, well, some people have the work period and other people have the shift assignment, that means you would have to set up multiple timesheet layouts. You cannot choose both. Can't have both of them here. So it's one or the other or none. So he did have a mixture there. Now, if they have none, as long as they're not on the schedule and they don't have a work period, it will not create anything for them. So that is creating the schedule, auto-populating the schedule of the timesheet. All right, we've added 2 new fields to the shift scheduling for the requirements for a job, as well as when I go to schedule, showing that information. So what we're talking about here is on a schedule, and I'll go into this customer service one as an example. I can, in the shift group, set up my requirements for this. And you'll notice here there are 2 new fields. Previously, it was positions, skills, and certifications. Now we've added position types and seniority. Now these all work together. So if I needed customer service reps with ERP skills and CPR certifications, they must match all 3 of these. If they don't match all 3, I can still schedule them, but there's an override I must do. Same type of thing with these fields here. If I say I want all the customer service reps who have at least 8 years of experience, somebody who's only got 7 years of experience or less than 8 is not going to show up as I can assign them. There is an override, but this is all and. So it's this and this and this and this and this. All right. So that's how that works there. Of course, I can also go down to the shift itself and set this up here. So maybe in this morning CSR, I need all of my people who have a lot of experience, years of experience, maybe 10 years of experience down here. You'll see here, this will include the requirement from the group. So that customer service rep position will already be here. I don't need to add it in here. It's going to remember that. But if I do add something here and I have this checked, it's going to say, remember what was in the group. And now I'll look for these criteria as well. All right, and then maybe the afternoon, I don't need as much experience, so I'm just going to leave this blank, or maybe I put in a lower number. All right, so now where do we actually see that? So once I save that, now I go to the assignments or the shift scheduling, and I go to schedule somebody. You'll see here, use shift requirements. So it's looking at those, and I don't see anybody because nobody had the right amount of experience who's also customer service. So here you'll see those two columns are added here, and you'll see the seniority and position type fields are added up here. And of course, I can still sort by these. So if I want to find somebody with the most experience with a certain job title and they're not scheduled or something like that, I can use this to sort and do those things if I need to. And then when I check this off, if they do not have those requirements, they don't even show up here. So I don't have anybody who's a customer service rep with 10 years of experience. All right, so that is the new fields for requirements for there. And you don't need to use the requirements. You could have no requirements and still use this to find the right people. Maybe you don't care about the seniority. You just want to look at it here and then you sort by position type or something. All right, mass creation and deleting of schedules. So we now have made it easier to create multiple weeks of schedules at a time because we found that some of our clients schedule out for several months. And rather than having to create one schedule per week and just go and run the same process over and over and over again, we now have the ability to say, I want to add multiple schedules or weeks to this. So I can go out there and say, I want my customer service people. I'm going to start next week. Just go ahead and copy from the existing week. Now, all of this is the same, but now I could say I want to add several weeks. Let's say I want to do the next 6 months. So I do 26 weeks here. Now you'll see a thing here. We'll talk about this in a moment, and that is publishing of schedules. If I check this off, they will immediately be visible to the employees. If I don't, I will have to schedule or I'll have to publish them after the fact. So this will go out there and it's going to tell you which period it's going to create. Do I want to proceed? I did 26, so let's just do 2, make it a little easier to see there. Here, I'm going to create the next 2 pay periods, which are these 2 weeks, and I'll go ahead and hit yes there. And there they are. Now you'll notice there they are drafts. Now, before I talk about that, you'll see here the deleting option. Now, I cannot delete next week because that would create a gap. So if I needed to get rid of this week here, I would have to delete the one before or in the future, the 8th, before I can delete that one. And the same thing happens here. If I check this box, you'll see this button here. It's not activated. I have to have all of them selected in a row. Now, if I had 6, let's go ahead and add a couple more out there just to show you. If I had several of them out there, let's go ahead and copy these. I'm going to add 4 more. I can delete further out. So I can say I want to delete these 3. They're all in a row, including the last one out there. So I'm able to delete that. But if I undo that, I cannot delete these 3. It'll create a gap. So I do have controls over those things. When I hit delete, it's going to go ahead and just remove those. And then, of course, I could create them again if I like. All right, the publishing in the draft right here. So what this allows you to do is to be working on the schedule and making whatever changes and things like that. And then when you're ready to let the employees know that they are scheduled, you hit publish. So this is not visible to the employees in self-service until I click the publish button. And I can unpublish as well. But what happens is all 8 of these people, they would have gotten a notification through self-service, email. If they're in the text messaging, they would have got text, as well as the mobile app, that the schedule for the 1st through the 7th was now available for them to view. Now, because it's before the 1st, I can unpublish it. So this will remove their access to be able to see it. They wouldn't be able to see it now. And then, of course, I can republish it right there. Now, I can leave gaps in the publishing. So if I wanted to publish this one, I could do that. But that doesn't matter. The only thing you can't do is you can't unpublish one from the past, and you can't unpublish one from the current period. So that's the publishing of that. And like I said, that's visible to the employees if this person was scheduled, which I don't think he is. But if he was scheduled, he'd be able to go right here and see it. All right, so that's that. Now, you can also do that in the shift group view here, which looks like this. You'll notice the publish option is right here. All right, and then of course I can unpublish it. So different options for that to make it visible to the employees. All right, the last one is a new report that's available called the monthly schedule report. So we have a report that'll show the schedule weekly, but now we also have a report that'll show the schedule monthly. So if I go to my self-service reports here, I can view that schedule here. You'll see team weekly shift schedule. I can view this by a month. Now let me show you what it looks like for a week. I don't know if this person in particular has anybody that he has access to. I should have tested this, but I can run this for a period. Let's just say I want to run it for this week, or I can run it for a month, and it will show me the people that I can see here. And I hope I could see those people that I've scheduled. Unfortunately, I can't, but it would show them scheduled here, and it would show them on the schedule. I should have assigned people to him to be able to see them, but he would be able to see their schedule here. I can also see this over here in reports. There's a scheduling report here. This will show that same information. Now I do have access to be able to see this here, and so I can run that. This one I did run before, so you can see the people who are scheduled. So my morning CSRs and who's scheduled right there. All right, so that is that. The monthly schedule report will be available for you if you have access to see them in self-service. So those are the scheduling enhancements here. Let's talk about a couple of things in Talent as well as self-service. So the learning management, what we have, there are some new notifications for training that's available. So you're able to see those new notifications out there just so you can see where notifications are in case you're not familiar where they're located. If you want to edit them, they are under your system configuration. You'll see two things here. One is notifications. This is enabling the notifications. And you can search up here if you want to search for certain notifications. And here you see you can enable them. First off, they need to be active, and then you can choose which style of notification is going to go out. All right, so this is where you can see those. This is just turning them on. And when I go to like courses, it's going to let people know that they are in a course. So if I type in course, I should be able to see that. So you'll see here learning courses, courses updated and so forth. Now mine are already on, but if they're not, you can turn them on just like this, or this right here will toggle all of them in this group on. And then if you want them to go out via email, as an example, you could do them all here, or you can pick and choose whichever ones you want. So this enables them. And then to actually see the layouts, because you possibly want to change those layouts, they're going to be here under notification layouts. And again, you might want to look for these things in here. I believe it's under learning. And here you'll see these in here. If you want to see like the course assignment notification, you could change this in here. Now be aware that any notification you set up here may have these tokens. So, it's going to fill in. It would say, hello, Sam Jones, the course glove safety is available in self-service. So these are different tokens there. I'd recommend don't delete them. You can certainly move them around, but don't delete those. And unless you just wanted to say hello and not have their name. But those are the tokens right there. All right. And of course, when I look at this is the email one. This is the one for SMS. This is the one in self-service. And this is the one that goes out to the mobile app. So there are 4 different ones. Now, not all of them have 4, if you may notice in notifications, but this is where you would change those. And then email and push, email, you have the address it comes from as well as the subject. In push, you have the subject. With SMS and ESS, you don't have the subject. So those new notifications are available under the course assignments, and you can go ahead and change those if you need to, or just read them and see if you like them. So those are the learning management system notifications. Let's talk about referral bonuses. So we now have support for referral bonuses to be used in recruiting and, of course, leading into payroll. So the setup of this happens under, you'll see here, payroll administration is where referral plans are. It shows up in recruiting, and then it gets paid out of payroll. So we just put it under payroll because this is where you would do this. Now, the first thing is, before you even set up the plan, if you want a separate income code to be used for a referral bonus, you need to set that up first. So you'll see here, I have this one called BON, which is my bonus. But if I want one specifically for a referral bonus, I would need to set that up first. You see, it is a required field. So you can have one or more referral plans. And the idea is that if I refer somebody to the job, they get hired and they work for X amount of time, I can get an amount. All right. Now you might say, well, two people referred him. We can automatically split it and say they each get, $250. All right. So here I have this one called referral plan. I'm using the bonus code. The amount is $500. I would automatically split it if there happen to be more than one person. I want to notify these two people 2 weeks in advance that this is happening so that I can be aware of it. And maybe I need to double check and make sure that person, that new person is, they're working out well and we're going to pay out that referral bonus. I might include the person who's going to get that bonus and let them know that it's out there. So you can choose who to notify down here. And then this is the effective date. Now, when I do this, you should see there it says I can use days of service, years of service, quarters of service, first date of subsequent month, or I can type in a date. So if you have a situation where they get it after 90 days that the person has been effective, you can write that formula in here to build that out. Once you have this configured, now you can start using it. And the first place you would use it, you don't have to do it here, but is on a candidate when they're in here. So let's say I go into this journeyman carpenter and I have some candidates here. I'll go ahead and pick on Sam. There's a new tab here called referrals. And in here, I can put one or more people that referred them. You'll notice the amount is not here. All I've done is put this on the referral plan. Now, we do not expose this to the candidate because we didn't want to have our employee list visible to the general public. So this is something that we're expecting the recruiter to put in. You may have a question or something on an application that asks if they were referred and they would type in the person's name. And then we're expecting the recruiter or HR to come in here and put that person's name in there. We thought it was safer than to just have a list of all the employees and they could select somebody. So we didn't expose this to the candidate in any way. So I can add somebody in here, very simple, search for that employee. It does go across employers if you have several employers. Let's just pick Paul here. What referral plan? I only have the one, so it's right there. When did they refer them? Because maybe I referred first and then somebody else came in 3 weeks later and referred him. That might be important to you. So you might have that date right there. And let's just say I referred him today. All right, so I've got a couple of different referrals out there. Now, when this person or if this person gets hired, it is part of the new hire process where you can see the referrals. So you're aware, okay, Chris and Sean, they both have some referrals on there. They're going to split the $500, or you might override it. Maybe Chris did all the work and Sean came in at the last minute and said, oh, by the way, I know that guy. You should probably hire him. Maybe you give Chris $450 and Sean $50. So you can override those amounts if you need to by not automatically splitting it. So in the new hire process, you'll be able to see those referrals in that process as I go through and hire them. There'll be a tab up here for referrals, and you'll be able to select that up there. And then you'll also be able to see it on the employee. You'll be able to see that there are referrals out there for them. And trying to remember where they are off the top of my head. There they are, payroll referrals. Now, I don't have one active because that person's still a candidate. But once I did, you would see here, who did I refer or who was I referred by? It's going to be one or the other. So if Chris referred somebody, I would see that person here. I can't put somebody in here because I referred that person. All right. Or if somebody referred me, I would be able to see that. And of course, that person would be able to see that. So let's just say Theodore referred him. What was the date of that referral? I'll just put it here. What referral plan is it? What is the bonus effective date? And this might be calculated based off of their hire date. So maybe it's going to be the 27th of March, and he's going to get $500. And I can put some notes here. So now if I go to Theodore, I would see the opposite of this, showing that it was he referred somebody. So he has referred Chris, and there's the $500. And then finally, in payroll, when it's time to pay them out in the payroll process, just like you can load timesheets and expense reports and things like that, referrals would show up. Now, it'll only show up when there is a referral to pay out. So in this import button, I would see load referral bonus. So it needs to be one that is eligible to be referred. So you'll see here that one I just set out, it's in March. I don't see it yet because it's not time to pay it out. But once it is time to pay it out, I can then select it and add it, just like I can add an expense report or commissions or other things like that, timesheets. I can load them right in, and then it would put that bonus code on that person and process the bonus in there. And of course, what it also does is it goes back and it will mark that it was paid out. So I'd be able to go back over to here and it would be marked that it was paid and the pay date that it was paid out. Long story short, it's great. So that's the referral bonus system there. I'm going to skip this one right here just because we're kind of running low on time and I want to get to the mobile app. I want to talk about this new widget that's available called Who's Working. So this shows the employees who are currently clocked in, how long they've been clocked in, what project and task and work site are they located at. All right, I happen to have 3 people clocked in. You'll see displaying 1 of 3. We'll show up to 5 in this widget. And instead of having the widget just go on and on and on, if you have dozens of people in there, you can click on this to see those people who are working. All right, and then I can click into somebody to see the detail of their timesheet. You'll notice here it opened up another tab, and it took me to the timesheet for Jack. All right, and I can see he's clocked in there. So you can go and look at that information there. You'll notice here these options. So if I want to narrow it down to a certain project or something like that, I could do that just to see the folks at a certain project as an example. I think all 3 of them are at the same project. No, just these 2 are there. So you can set that if you like. All right, so very easy to look at that who's working right there. And you'll see here, I could rearrange the columns. I could turn them off. This will save that. So if I don't want project, but task is important to me, I can enable that and save this. It'll remember that I've enabled that. Now, this right here will show me where those people are working, depending on their situation with how they clocked in. It's also available right here. It's going to be the same view regardless of how I go there, but this will show them on a map. So you'll notice here, we have those 3 people clocked in. 2 of them are over here. That's Jack and Andre, and Theodore is over here. And so this is using the GPS. That's what the little thing is there. It's using the GPS from his phone. This is using the work site. They might have like clocked in on a phone or excuse me, like a tablet or a clock or something like that. The work site is right here. This is his phone. He's out in the field away from a work site. So what you can do is on a work site, you can set the geolocation of that work site and it will show them on a map. And I will talk about that in just 1 second here. I'll go to a work site. Let's say this dig site here as an example. And I can set the coordinates of that dig site. So if somebody clocks in, let's say on a tablet that's over there or a clock that doesn't have GPS, or even if their phone does have GPS, but it sees they're at that location, it'll put them on the map at this GPS coordinate. And you can set the coordinate right here. Now, if they are at a workplace where there are no coordinates set, or they're just out and they're not actually inside of a geofence, that's when it's going to show them just out like this. This is also visible on the mobile, which I'll show here in a minute. All right, and I did talk about the announcements up here. So these are reading the announcements that are set up in open enrollment. You may have noticed I clicked open here to actually go into open enrollment, but I can also choose to hide this, what that means is not going to show it again today, but tomorrow, if I haven't completed open enrollment, it's going to come back to remind the person to complete their open enrollment. It's not knocking them on the head, but it's just another way of reminding them that they need to do that. All right, I've left myself 7 minutes to get to the end here of the mobile app. So let me go ahead and bring that up here. What I'm going to do is switch my view over. That while I'm doing this, I do want to remind you that we are always looking for your new ideas on the system. So if you do have any, please feel free to share those with us, and we'd be happy to look into that, see if we can add that to the system. And as always, if you have questions, you can reach out to support on those things. Our customer success team will help you out with the configuring of these new features if necessary, and how they work, or maybe just give you a little bit of guidance on those things here. All right, let me share my phone here. So this is, oh, I didn't expect that to happen. This is our new mobile app here. And I don't know what just happened. There we go. This is our new mobile app. So this is, again, with the new branding, and I don't know why it keeps doing this to me. I had no problem with this earlier. There we go. Showing our new branding out here. Now, the function's the same. It's just the new color schemes and stuff like that. So you're able to see that there. Here you'll see the who's working. So that same widget you saw earlier about who's working, I'm able to see that right here. And I have that button to show where they are on the map. So as a person who's out in the field, maybe the manager or whatever, I can see where people are located and click on them and it will bring me over to where they are on the map. All right, so that's available right here in the mobile app there. Okay, so very simple to be able to see that there. Now that open enrollment notification, unfortunately, I cleared it in self-service, but it would show right up here at the top. If I had not cleared it, maybe I shouldn't have cleared it. It would be right here in yellow, right at the top that I needed to do my open enrollment. All right, let's talk about some of the other things that are available in here. When I go to take a picture of things. So let's say you're doing an expense report or you're adding an attachment to something. Now you can do it right in the system. You could take a picture right on the phone. Instead of taking a picture ahead of time, saving it, and then attaching it later, you could do it right in here if I need to. So if I go to pay and expense reports, I can add an attachment right into this rather than having to take the picture ahead of time. Now, this one's already been submitted, but now that it's not submitted, this is where I could do that right in here. I can attach right there and attach that right in there. So I could take a picture in here, and anywhere else where I have an attachment, you can now use that. Now I can't do that the way I'm sharing it, but it does work. I can't use my camera and share my phone at the same time. So that's not available there. Now, if you do have any custom screens available, you'll be able to see those here in the mobile app. So you can come up here and you'll see here, this is a custom screen I've created called vaccinations. So it's available under the profile, which is the person's picture up here, or if they don't have a picture, it's just that circle. And then here is the custom screen that I would have. Now I don't have any data here. However, I can add data and say they got the flu vaccine. They work in the, I don't know why department is this, but let's just say other. And there might be other information. When did I receive it? Put the date in there, the dosage, and so forth as I need to, and submit this. So now you'll see I have a vaccination in there and whatever other custom screens they have access to in self-service. Now, I may have other custom screens that I don't see in self-service because I didn't enable them. They would not be visible, of course. All right. Now, one thing I should have mentioned previously, because it's in self-service as well, if you have any company policies, you can now make them signature optional. Now, these all have signatures on them, but when you're setting up a policy, you can now say that it does not require a signature. This is not a mobile exclusive feature. What this means is that when you come into the policy, you don't have to sign it. You can still read it and all the other stuff you might do with that particular policy, but it no longer requires the signature on there. So you'll notice these three I have on there, and on the policy setup is where you can set that up there. And I don't know why I didn't have that up there in the HR enhancements, but it is not a mobile exclusive ones. If you look in the release notes, it's under mobile, but it's actually across the board. And I'm just trying to think of anything else here in mobile that I have not shown here. Oh, the company directory and org chart is available in here. I believe it's under resources. So the company directory and org chart, these were not here before. This is the same thing that's in self-service. So I can view that org chart, that company directory, and I can see that information. Now my access to this information is based off my security. So I'm a system admin. I can see all this. If I don't have access to be able to see addresses as an example, I'm not going to be able to get around it by going to the company directory and the organization view. So here I'm Theodore. These people report to me. I could click on these people and see their information. Again, similar to the company directory, if I have access to be able to view their addresses, I'll see it here. But if you do not give them access to it, they will not be able to see it. All right. So that is the new mobile app. As I mentioned, everything is going to be available on the 9th of February. So let's go back and we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. As I said, the release date is February 9th here. And we do really appreciate your time joining us today. I do want to mention our upcoming learning series webinar next week. We are covering the Affordable Care Act for our American friends who need to do the Affordable Care Act reporting. We're going to do this. We do this annually. So we'll have this out there for the 2025 year, and we'll go over how that works in the system. Then we're going to move over into payroll, and we're going to talk about GL accounts and account mapping. So you may be interested in that, how that works in the system, and we're going to cover that in a few weeks. We'll then go over to learning management. We're going to cover things like courses and classes and learning paths and those whole things that are in the learning management area of the system. And then we're going to revisit payroll and just talk about general payroll processing and the things in there. For an example, the referral bonuses and the other things you might pay out of a payroll. So that's what's upcoming in our learning series webinar. I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. And we really do appreciate your time. We also really appreciate your suggestions. As I mentioned, you can do that right through the software. And I especially want to thank my colleagues in the development team and professional services all throughout the system here, who do have great ideas, and they do a great job of providing these enhancements to you for all of us to enjoy. So thank you again. I hope everybody has a nice day, and I will see you all again later.